All callers are muted.
All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mark Hamlin. I'll be your host tonight. I'm from Richmond, Virginia, and we're glad to have you with us. We're going to be sharing with you a very powerful concept that is helping people not only across America, but also around the world get funding for personal, business, and charitable projects. We're going to break this down so you have a thorough understanding of what this is all about and how you can get all the funding you need as well. So we're talking about a phenomenon called crowdfunding. Now, everything I'm about to share with you tonight, you can verify it yourself simply by doing a Google search. So you might want to take some notes, jot down a few questions, because this is a Q&A webinar. And at the end of the webinar, we're going to open the line up so you can get all your questions answered. So let's go ahead and get started. So we're talking about how to make crowdfunding work for you. And as I mentioned, my name is Mark Hamlin. I am your host tonight, and I am a project manager. I've raised quite a bit of money for my own personal projects, and it's been pretty amazing because it has enabled me the ability to travel around the country, to speak in various cities, to share this concept with other people. The great thing is that all the money I needed to pay for those trips came from my crowdfunding project. None of it came out of my pocket. And that's what crowdfunding is all about, giving people the ability to live out their goals, their dreams, and their passions. So one of the things I've done is I've studied this concept I'm about to share with you. I've also looked into other ways to raise funding, and I've found this to be the most successful revolutionary concept that I have seen. So it enabled me to do some amazing things. In fact, let me share with you my story. I was in the construction business for several years, and it was pretty successful. In fact, my wife didn't have to work anywhere. But then something called the recession hit. Maybe you didn't have a recession in your city, but we certainly had one here in Virginia. Make a long story short, the bottom fell out and our business just dried up. So we managed to hold on for a few years, but then we find ourselves falling behind on everything, including our mortgage. Well, needless to say, we got a foreclosure notice from the bank. I didn't know what to do. And for the first 3 weeks, I didn't tell anybody what was going on. I was in a lot of stress, under a whole lot of pressure, because the only thing I could think about is what are we going to do with all that stuff in the attic? What are we going to do with all that stuff in the garage if we have to move? Well, fortunately, I snapped out of it. I picked up the phone. I called a friend. And if you're in a tough situation right now, the worst thing you can do, ladies and gentlemen, is keep it to yourself. You definitely want to reach out to someone that you trust and at least ask for some advice. Well, I did that. And my friend said, Mark, I can't give you any money, but I can tell you what to do because I was in that situation myself not long ago. Said, you need to get a good attorney who can help you dealing with the banks. Well, I followed that advice. And what happened was they were able to stall the bank, to put everything off. And well, it just so happened that I was involved in crowdfunding. In fact, this very project, this platform that I'm going to share with you today, and we were able to raise enough money. After about 2 months in the program, we were able to raise enough money to pay the bank every dime we owed them, to pay the attorneys every penny we owed them, to get back in right standing with the bank, and we were able to save our house from foreclosure. So I'm just not just sharing with you something that I heard, I'm sharing with you what I have experienced and what I have seen other people experience with different issues and different challenges and goals that they had. So let's go a little further. So, you know, in business school, when it comes to raising money for things, they teach you about something called debt financing, which is when you have to go to the bank to borrow money. They also talk about something called equity financing, which is when you have to find investors who are going to loan you the money in exchange for a share of your project or your business. But tonight we're going to talk about a dynamic new concept called crowdfunding. Crowdfunding is sweeping the country. In fact, it's all over the world, and it's helping people get funding for personal, business, and charitable projects. The great thing about this concept, ladies and gentlemen, is that it is not a loan, it is not a grant, and there's no repayment required ever. So this is funding for starting a business, going on vacation, paying for a wedding, paying for college tuitions, medical expenses, buying a new car, paying off your mortgage, producing movies or creative projects, also helping people in underprivileged communities, as well as feeding children and even supporting a ministry or building a church. So when you look at the history of crowdfunding, which has been around officially since 2008, you're going to find that in 2011, crowdfunding was responsible for providing $1.2 billion to people to help them. In fact, in 2013, it grew to over $6.2 billion. And in 2014, the revenues actually overtook Facebook. 2014, $16 billion was given to people to help them through crowdfunding. The World Bank also estimates $96 billion will be given within the next few years. So crowdfunding, the definition according to Wikipedia, is the practice of funding a project or venture by raising many donations from a large number of people, typically via the internet. So if you're raising money for your family, maybe you're going out to the flea market, or you're doing yard sales, or you're raising money for your nonprofit, for your business, you're selling magazine subscriptions, you're doing car washes. Well, that's fine, but that's old school. We want to bring you up to the 21st century, where technology has changed everything. So crowdfunding is 21st century fundraising. So let's take a look at a few examples of what crowdfunding has done to help a few people. First of all, we have James Robinson. Now, James lives in Detroit. We were just down there a few weeks ago, and he works in a factory. He makes less than $10 an hour. Well, a few years ago, his car broke down, and he couldn't afford to buy a new one. He couldn't afford to have it repaired, so he did the only thing he could do. He walked back and forth to work, 10 miles each way for over 13 years. Well, a 19-year-old college student saw what was going on and created a crowdfunding project on James' behalf. Well, needless to say, people just like you and I gave small donations to help James, a total of over $350,000. Do you think James got the car? Absolutely. He got the car and a whole lot more. Let's take a look at another example. This is Natalie DeBose, and she likes to bake. So she would go down to the flea market and she would sell her baked products down there until she was able to raise enough money to open up her own bakery shop in a little town called Ferguson. Anybody ever heard of Ferguson? Well, unfortunately, her business was one of the shops that got destroyed by the looters. So her friends got together. They did a crowdfunding campaign on her behalf, and people just like you and I, out of the generosity of our hearts, gave over $270,000 to help Natalie rebuild her place. Well, needless to say, she was able to do so 10 times better than it was before the riots, and that's a good thing. Next, we want to talk about Karen Klein, and perhaps you saw her story on YouTube. Karen is a bus monitor, and she would ride on the buses, but the students would torment her. They made her life really miserable. Well, someone recorded it and put it on YouTube. A gentleman saw it. He didn't like the way the students were treating her, so he created a crowdfunding campaign on her behalf to raise money so that Karen could take a well-needed vacation. Well, people just like you and I, out of the generosity of our heart, gave small donations, which totaled over $700,000 to help Karen. Well, needless to say, Karen got that well-deserved vacation, and she also got a well-needed retirement plan. Isn't that awesome? Well, let's take a look at one more example. This is Billy Ray Harris. Now, Billy Ray is homeless, and he found a wedding ring. He returned it to the owner, and people just like you and I heard about this because they did a crowdfunding campaign on his behalf, and the people donated over $170,000 so James, Billy Ray Harris, could get a well-needed home and a place to stay. And that's what crowdfunding is all about, ladies and gentlemen, is people helping one another. So let me ask you a question. Did all of these events really happen? And did this money come from the government? Or did this money come from a bank in the form of a loan that had to be paid back? Well, the answer is absolutely no. And the last question I have for you, ladies and gentlemen, is crowdfunding legal? Well, it absolutely is. And if you have any doubt about any of these things, you can go online and do a Google search for yourself. My last question is, would you like to get this type of funding for yourself? Now, when you think about crowdfunding, you need to understand that there are certain requirements. Now, first of all, you need to have a project. This is the difference between crowdfunding and gifting. Everybody has a project, and when people donate, they're donating to fund your project. So you have to write that story, and then you're going to choose one of the 500 different websites that are going to host it for you. Well, these websites, they charge you a fee, normally anywhere from 3 to 12%. So James Robinson had to pay $12,500, or he had to give $7,500 of the money he collected back to that platform. Natalie DeBose had to give back $13,500, and Karen Klein had to give $28,000. All total, $60,000 had to go back to the platforms. Well, one of the things that makes us different from these other platforms is that direct funding, the way that they did it, is absolutely free. So you definitely want to thank the person who referred you to this webinar tonight. You want to get back with them. They'll show you how to get your project registered for free as well. Now, most successful projects, ladies and gentlemen, have several things in common. First of all, they have a large database of people who know, like, and trust them. So it's important, that you have friends, and it's a good idea to have some friends on Facebook. It also helps to have an advertising budget, and it helps to have a team of people working together to promote one particular project. And finally, it also helps to have media attention, because this is going to provide you with free advertising, and that's a good thing, especially in this kind of situation. Unfortunately, 90% of all crowdfunding campaigns fail because the people don't really understand how crowdfunding works. For some reason, they seem to think that it's a handout. But ladies and gentlemen, crowdfunding works because you ask for help. It's kind of funny, you may have heard the phrase, you have not because you ask not. Crowdfunding is about asking for help and getting it. So with these direct funding campaigns, you're pretty much on your own. You have to create your own project, you have to present it, you have to promote it, and you have to make it work. So is there work involved in crowdfunding? Absolutely. Many of these platforms also have time limits. In other words, if you don't reach your funding goal within a certain time limit, the money is actually returned to the donators. So just imagine that. Let's say you had a funding goal of $50,000 and you raised $49,900, but you were $100 short. Well, guess what, ladies and gentlemen? You wouldn't get anything. All that money is returned to the donators. But with our platform, it's totally different. 100% of the donations go directly to you. You get the money immediately, and there are no fees whatsoever. And no one is also going to hold your money for days or for weeks like many of those other platforms do. In addition to that, ladies and gentlemen, when you do direct funding, that's you promoting your own project, you going out and asking for donations, that's you working by yourself. So that's a process that's involved. Well, we have a better way of doing it. With our way, we use the community. And when we use the community, we leverage our relationships, our connections, and the influence of one another, and the difference is exponential. So that's what we're going to talk about today. What would happen if people simply came together in support of one another rather than going out there and doing it by themselves? That's what we're going to talk about tonight. We call it community crowdfunding. We're going to show you how to unleash the power of the crowd and multiply the number of your donations. We do this by giving you the opportunity to help others. We're going to be able to show you how to help other people get their dreams funded, while at the same time you're getting your dreams funded as well. We do this by sharing, because we've learned that when you give to others, you open the door for other community members to do the same thing for you. It's really something powerful about going out of your way to help others. It has a way of coming back to you. Would you agree with that? Now, crowdfunding is a new concept, ladies and gentlemen, but it's also an old concept. It comes from something called cooperative economics. And this is what people have done throughout history to help one another when they individually lack the resources. People actually came together in support of one another. Isn't that a novel idea? And so with cooperative economics, each person would contribute to the community, knowing that the community would come together and contribute to them in similar ways. In fact, this concept has been going on around the world. In Latin America, it's called tandas. In Mexico, it's called cadenas. And in West Africa and the Caribbean, it's called susu. In Asia, it's called we. And in India, it's called the ko. So here's a couple of things you need to understand what community crowdfunding is not. Community crowdfunding is not a business, and it's not an income opportunity. It's simply a donation, contribution, or distribution formula, and is purely based on crowdfunding. And we make no claims or guarantees of the contributions that your project will receive, because each individual's project success depends largely on his or her commitment, desire, and personal efforts. So in other words, the amount of money that you raise for your project is not based on when you start, it's based on what you do after you start. The whole concept is performance-based. So as a member of our community, you will be actively involved in supporting others and securing donations, not only for your project, but for the project of others as well. That's how we work together. So how do you join our community? You join our community by first giving, by giving a one-time donation to the campaign of the person or the organization that referred you. Now, here's the thing about our community, ladies and gentlemen. There are no additional costs, there are no monthly costs, there are no yearly costs, and there are no membership fees. In order to join the community, you must first give in order to receive. So let's stop right here for a moment, because I want to make sure you understand something. We talked about something called direct funding. We talked about that earlier. That's when you write your project, you promote your project yourself. With us, the donations go directly to you and you get 100% of the money. But the downside to that, ladies and gentlemen, is that when you stop promoting your project, what happens to the donations? That's right, the donations stop. So we created a better way. It's called community crowdfunding. In the community, we support the projects of one another. In fact, the more people you help, the more help you get. So how do you join this community? You join this community by making a one-time donation to the campaign of the project of the organization that referred you. How much is that going to be? It's either going to be $50, $100, or $200. But it's just a one-time donation. You never have to go back in your pocket again. There are no monthly fees and there are no yearly costs. Now, when you give that donation, ladies and gentlemen, 100% of that money goes to the project that referred you. They get 100% of that donation. So let me ask you a question. If 100% of the donation goes to the project of the organization or the person who referred you, is there any money left for anybody else? And the answer is no. 100% of that donation goes to the project that referred you. That's how you know, ladies and gentlemen, that this is not some type of a pyramid. It's really simple way of explaining that. And so we want you to understand that this is not one of those programs. Hopefully you got that. Let's go a little further. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to give you an example of what our donation distribution formula works and how we support the projects of one another within our community. So hopefully you're looking on the screen through the webinar and you can see my screen right now. So first of all, you see the words "my project." So that's your project. You have to write your story and you put it on our website. Now, once you've done that, you want to join the community. How do you join the community? By making a donation to the project of the person or the organization that referred you. In this example, we're going to say that they are on the first floor before you. And there are 3 donations that you're going to make, and 100% of those donations goes to that project. So now, once you join the community, you have a job. What's the job? Spread the word. Let other people know that there's a way for them to also get funding for their personal needs and personal goals, for their business projects and for their charitable projects. But in order for them to join our community, they must first donate to your project. And when they do, you receive 100% of those donations. So how many people can you refer to our community? Well, how many people are out there that need funding for something? And how many groups, organizations, and businesses that need funding for their causes? They're all over the place. So you can refer as many people as you want to. And so when they join our community, they're going to donate to you. So now once they join the community, they have a job also, the same as yours. Spread the word, let people know that there's a way for them too to get funding for their projects. The great thing is not a grant, it's not a loan, and there's no repayment required. Do you know anyone who needs funding for anything? If you can say that in any language, ladies and gentlemen, you can raise all the funding you need for your program. So when they go out and they do the same, donations begin to flow through our community. Now, when those other people join our program, you can qualify to receive donations from them also. How do you do that? You must first take a little bit of the donations that you have already received, and you want to donate to other projects within our community. We're going to say those projects are on the second floor before you. When you donate to the projects on the second floor before you, you now qualify to receive donations from the projects that are going to be joining our community on the second floor after you. And this process continues multiple times because within our community, we support the projects of one another. All right. So when you've seen this a couple of times, you will get it. It's kind of like almost like a math problem. The first time you see it, you don't quite get it. But the second and the third time you see it, the light bulb goes off and everything becomes very, very clear. All right. So in order to join the community, you'll make a donation of anywhere from $50, $100, or $200, and 100% of that money goes to the project of the person that referred you. So we have multiple donations that we make. And when you have made all those donations, you're now qualified to receive donations from other projects that are coming within our community. All right, so let's go a little further. So let's just say from all of your friends that only 2 of them need or want money for something that's important to you. And we're going to say that's Jasmine and that's Rachel. So we're going to show you how powerful our community concept works when you simply go out and refer just 2 people who go out and refer just 2. You're going to see how powerful this is. So this is how it works. So I'm looking at my diagram again. And so you join the community by donating to the Veterans Project, which we're going to say is on the first floor before you. So how much are you going to donate to them? You're going to donate up to $200, and they get 100% of the money. So then you go out, you share the concept with Jasmine and Rachel, and Jasmine and Rachel are now going to donate to your project. So 2 times 200 is $400. So how much of that $400 actually goes to your project? 100% of it. So we're going to say you now have $400 in your funding account. So now that $400 is all your money. You can do whatever you want with it because it's all yours. But you might decide to take a little bit of it and help someone else within our community. Well, how much would you take according to our formula? You would take $320. That $320 is going to be shared with 3 projects. Project number 2 is going to receive 50%. Project number 3 is going to receive 25%, and project number 4 is going to receive 25%. So when you donate to other projects within our community, it's actually going to be separated to 3 different projects at the same time. So how much are you going to donate in this case? Well, $320 is going to be donated. Where does that $320 come from? It comes out of the $400 you received. Because the great thing about our program, ladies and gentlemen, is that once you've donated that $200 and you go out and you spread the word, you never have to go back in your pocket again. Everything you do within the community comes out of the donations that you received, not out of your pocket, because this is a self-funding program, as you're about to see right now. So that $320 is donated to the next 3 projects. So now that you donated to the project on the second floor before you, you now qualify to receive donations from projects that are going to be coming in the second floor after you. Well, where are those projects going to come from? They come from Jasmine and Rachel, because remember, we said that once you join our community, you have a job, which is to spread the word. And we tell people, if you don't want to spread the word, then don't join our community. Because when everyone does their job, this community has exponential growth, and you're about to see what that can do for you and I. All right, so Jasmine and Rachel go out and refer to, so now you have 4 projects on the second floor after you. Now, because you gave first, you now qualify to receive donations from them. How much are you going to receive? Well, 50%. Remember we talked about the 50 and the 25 and the 25? Well, this time, 50% of those donations are going to you because you qualified by giving first. So 50% is 160 times the 4 projects. That's $640. So now you have $640 going to your project. Well, that's all your money, so you can do whatever you want with it. You might decide to volunteer and share some of it with some of the other projects within our community. So how much are you going to share? In this case, you're going to be sharing $640 with the project on the 3rd floor before you. So where does that $640 come from? It comes from the $640 that you just received. Now, because you gave out of the goodness of your heart to help another project on the 3rd floor before you, you now qualify to receive donations from the projects that are coming on the 3rd floor after you. Where are they coming from? Remember those 4 projects? They went out and they referred to, because that's what we do. So now you have 8 projects on the 3rd floor after you donating half, or $320 to your project. So now you have an additional $2,500 going to your project. That $2,500 goes into your project fund. All right, now you can receive more by donating and giving to other projects within our community. What projects? The project on the 4th floor before you. How much are you going to donate? You're going to donate $1,280. So if you're looking on my screen, you can see that these donations, they double. All right, so where does that $1,280 come from? It comes out of the $2,560 that you received from the community. All right, so because you donated $1,280 to the projects on the 4th floor before you, you now qualify to receive donations from the projects on the 4th floor after you when they get to the point where you are. Everyone is doing the same thing. Can you see that? So now you have 16 projects donating $640 to your project. All right, so now it starts to get interesting, because that's an additional $10,000. So you can use all that for your own project, but you might decide to take a little bit of it to help some other projects within your community. So how much are you going to take? In this case, it's going to be $2,560. The $2,560 comes out of the $10,000 that you have received. So now, because you gave to the projects on the 5th floor before you, you now qualify to receive donations from projects on the 5th floor after you when they do exactly what you have done. So how much is that going to be? Well, you can look on my screen and you can see that that is a significant amount. And this process replicates itself 2 more times on the 6th floor as well as the 7th floor. And what this can do for your project, for a group or an organization, is pretty amazing. So this example that I just showed you is what happens when 2 projects simply go out and refer to, and everybody repeats the process. So I have a question for you, ladies and gentlemen. Is this all the donations that this formula can provide for your project? And the answer is no, because if you're looking at my screen right now, we have only calculated the first 50%. We did not include the other 25%. So the number that you see here is just a fraction of the donations that your project can potentially receive. And besides that, suppose you went out and you referred 5 projects instead of 2, or 10 projects instead of 5. What could that potentially do for your fundraising efforts? It's pretty amazing. Let me ask you a question. Who do you know that needs funding for something that's important to you? We'd like to welcome you and introduce you to We Share Crowdfunding. It's all about people helping people. And here's the thing, ladies and gentlemen, amazing things happen when people come together in support of one another. And that's exactly what community crowdfunding is all about. So together we can do great things, because amazing things happen when people come together economically in support of one another. So we thank you so much for being on the webinar tonight. You definitely want to get back in contact with the person who referred you. They'll get all your questions answered. We're glad that you were able to join us tonight. So what I'm going to do now, I'm actually going to unmute the screen, unmute the call, and if you have any questions, you can do 1 or 2 things. You can jot your questions in the the chat box, or you can simply press *6, and that will unmute the line, and I will get your questions answered. Now, it's going to be a couple of minutes here because the video has to get caught up. But as soon as the video gets caught up, you'll be able to ask your questions. All right. So I'm going to wait just a second here. We do have a couple of questions in the chat box. I'm going to go ahead and get those answered for you. So we're glad you all were able to make it tonight. Hope you had a great weekend. So the first question I have is from Keith. And Keith asked, what happens after you get all your funding? Do you have to join the program again? The answer is no. Once you have donated to the community on those 7 floors that we talked about, you have no more donations to donate out. You just are receiving donations. And anything else you do it out of the kindness of your heart. And so one of the great things about this community is that this community, once you get it started, you can't stop it. It has a way of growing on its own. And it is international. In fact, 80% of our growth happens to be overseas. So it's pretty amazing. When you get involved in a concept like this, you want to share the concept with everybody you know, different nationalities and ethnic groups, people living in other countries, because we can actually do this in 170 countries around the world. All right. So anyone else have a question for me? Press *6. That should unmute the line, and I should be able to hear you. All right. So we're really excited, ladies and gentlemen. We are doing some amazing things around the world, and we've got some other things that are about to occur within the next couple of weeks. I think you're going to be very, very excited about what you are about to see. So we're glad to have you with us. If anyone else has a question, go ahead and press *6. If not, we're going to conclude the webinar, and we will be back again tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Let's see here. All right, very good. So we thank you, Rod. Rod said that he heard the presentation, and 3 times, every time he hears it, it gets a little clearer. So we're glad that you are able to be on the call. So someone said, what are the payment processor options? Well, when you do direct funding, you can use PayPal. Remember, you can write your own project. You can promote it yourself. People can donate. The money goes directly to you. So you can use PayPal for your payment processor. Your donation button is what we call it. But you can use any other payment processor that you choose. So there's plenty of them out there. You just make arrangements with them, and you get their donation button, and you put it on your website. Now, in terms of the company, in terms of donations within the community, we have our own debit card that you can order. You can also get withdrawals through your PayPal account as well. So we have 2 different ways that we're able to raise money. That's direct funding. You're promoting your project yourself. The money goes directly to you. You get 100% of the money. And we also have, you can raise donations within the community when you donate to other projects within the community. So we have 2 ways that we actually raise money and funding within our platform. All right, let's see. Is it a good way to start by promoting on Facebook? Yep, promoting on Facebook is good. I use attraction marketing, and so I encourage all of you to send me a Facebook friend request. My name is Mark Hamill. I live in Richmond, Virginia. You'll see me in a radio studio. Send me a friend request, and you can see some of the posts that I use. You're welcome to duplicate those posts. When people respond, you send them your capture page link through a private message. So the capture page system we use is a third-party system. It's called yourcrowdfundingteam.com. yourcrowdfundingteam.com. So you register for that. You use your same username and password. And then when people ask questions and they want information about what we're doing, you send them to your capture page link. So when they go to that link, they have to put in their email and their name and their phone number, and you'll get an email letting you know that somebody's looking. So now you can follow up with that person rather than promoting in the blind and just sending them directly to your project page. you can send them through your capture page instead. That's a good way to do some professional marketing. And as I mentioned earlier, that system is called yourcrowdfundingteam.com. All right, so I see another question here. It says, can you explain the rules of promoting your campaigns, the do's and the don'ts? Okay, Tony, if you log into your back office, you will actually see it in your back office. It says promotional rules. You want to read those. So one of the things we do, we promote our project on Facebook, anywhere you want to, your project, you can promote that anywhere. But we don't promote the company on Facebook. We promote the concept, the crowdfunding concept. By doing it that way, we protect the company from people making mistakes in the things that they say. So when you want to promote the concept, talk about crowdfunding, invite people to these webinars, send them to your capture page, and let the videos and let us do the explaining for you. That way you can stay compliant and you don't have to worry about making errors, and we can protect the company. So definitely log into your back office and read those promotional rules. They will help you. So Rod has a question. He says, Mark, so for the direct funding, you can enter your ultimate payment processor other than PayPal. The answer is yes, you can. It says, I had one person tell me that they did not have PayPal in his country. That's true. Some countries don't have PayPal. And in those cases, they need to look and need to search for other payment processing companies that they can use. Now, some countries, if they're on the the international blacklist, like Syria, Iran, they're going to have a very hard time because banks won't deal with them at all. So hopefully they're not in those countries, and there are other payment processors that they can use. So they can find that information simply by doing a Google search, and that will solve that issue for them. All right, great questions, everybody. All right. So if anyone else has a question, you can type it in the chat box, or you can press *6, and I should be able to hear you. So let me do this. I'm going to do one more thing here. I'm going to unmute the entire line.
Q&A session is over. All callers are unmuted.
Okay, so all callers are unmuted. Does anyone else have a question or comment for me?
Hey, Mark, Bone Crusher, Brother Beach, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How about yourself, Bone Crusher?
Just touch base with you. Just want to say hello. That's all.
Oh, great. Glad to hear from you. We're really excited. We've got this secondary program coming out in a few weeks. We're going to be sharing more information as we get a little closer. It's going to be pretty amazing because it's going to enable us to reach out to different groups and nonprofits because we're going to have a lot of credibility, and it's going to allow these groups and organizations to create funding not only for themselves but also for their supporters. So I'm looking forward to when that's going to be released. It should be within the next 2 or 3 weeks. I think it's going to take us to another level, pretty amazing. So I'm pretty excited about that. So glad to have you on the call. And as that information is released, we'll be sharing it with everyone. It's going to be a secondary funding source for all of us, but it's going to be recurring donations. And it's going to be recurring donations that will continue to grow around the country and around the world. It's going to be pretty amazing. So looking forward to introducing that and sharing that within our communities. So glad to have you on the call with us, champ.
Thanks.
All right. Does anyone else have a question or a comment before we close out for the night? All right, ladies and gentlemen, so get back in contact with the person who referred you. They'll get all the additional questions answered for you. We look forward to getting you started. We look forward to working with you, helping you raise all the funding you need for your personal business and charitable projects. Everyone, have a great evening.